all the classic film franchises, which film franchise will give you the best 1-2 punch that you could watch?
So yeah, this is this. This is I am describing this badly, but besides the point. This is like the 1-2 combo, and this is one of the films that one is in one of the decades, and two fits with this. So I'm doing both because I think it's useful. Which is the film which is one, the film for the films for each decade thing from 1999. Each year that I was born, 1999, going to this year, in 2003, and a sequel. Yeah, Final Destination 2. I think it is a good 1-2 combo. Why? Because one, the Final Destination film that I had in 2000, I think is good. And because this is roughly when Scream came out, and I think this is, I would consider roughly a classic. And when you had the first one, which I'm going to roughly talk about, the Final Destination, you had the intense, you had the mystery, you had the solve. And I fully admit that the Final Destination 1 characters are, I would say, the most interesting out of the entire out of the entire main 5 Final Destination films, because Bloodlines has amazing characters, in my opinion. But overall, when you get Final Destination, the mystery, trying to introduce this world, introduce this way in a good way. So when Final Destination 2 came out, you, one, have Claire Rivers, you don't have Alex kind of has, and then a brick fell on his head, which is a shame, but I would think having two characters who somewhat have the ability of seeing would kind of make the movie a little bit confusing. I just would want to check this. I think it's, Kimberly have the powers is useful, but why do I think this is a good 1-2 combo? Why don't I go with Final Destination 3? Which I will actually talk about in a bit, because it's not relevant to this, but like Final Destination 3, 4. I could even go with 3 and 4, there are obvious reasons. There's nothing really connecting besides the main. Here's the tragedy, boom, 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 boom. Final Destination 3 doesn't really have any connections besides, if you look carefully in the background, a couple of details. Final Destination 4 also doesn't really have any real connections to the things. Again, besides the coming back of a 180, which is in all films. I could also talk about Bloodlines, which would make sense for 1 and 2, because he is in that film. I could also talk about 5 and 1. But why do I think 1 and 2 is such a good combo? At least a 1-2 combo like Straw Hat and Goofy's End. Simple. This film is built with the idea that everything that happened in the first film specifically led to the second film. You don't get it with a couple of characters like the character Evan, I think it was something to do with the concert, but you don't really get too much. No one really says stuff. And the two people in the car, meaning the mother and and her son, you don't really get any confirmation. Even CZ's Wells didn't really confirm it, even though there is stuff about the other person who didn't say this, which was the sort of lucky lottery winner, had something to do with a concert which was connected to someone else. Oh no, that was another person. That was the guy who was... Again, this is all interesting, but here's the point. Every person who died in Final Destination 2 should have died earlier, but didn't because of Final Destination 1. All the things that he had to set up with Final Destination 1 made it that some people had things skipped, and you see this later with the barbecue scene at the end of the movie, building up this idea that he will just put people on a list, prioritizing these big things that have to do all at once. Because, like, he will sometimes just do this. I'm also going to fully acknowledge that there is actually one bit of connection that a lot of people don't consider canon. I do. I fully do. Which is in your Choose Your Own Adventure DVD in Final Destination 3, which is Choose Your Fate, there was a bit where it's like, and they died in a woodchipper. A lot of people don't consider that canon. I do, because they did the same thing with Alex, but it's in a Choose Your Own Adventure and you can skip it. And if you watch the movie normally, you don't see it. But I do think it's a good movie because of that. It builds on what the second film was implying and did one thing. Because a lot of the time when you have, even with Scream, I think you don't get this too often, the quote-unquote legacy characters or people who come back sometimes do die. You do get Final Destination, you do get Scream 4 or 5, I don't know, where you get the police officer, I don't remember his name, he dies, which is insane. Obviously I know a bit about Scream. But the other thing you get, which is interesting in this, is Claire Rivers comes back, which is interesting. She survives for a lot, and she's the only person besides Alex, who later on we found is dead. But when she comes back, it's almost like one film. I think she's the only person who's sort of been a reoccurring besides Bloodworth, but the moment is the next movie, gone. And I think it's a clever idea. It's sort of like getting rid of the last person of that original flight. It's, I need to nip this in the bud. I need to get rid of this problem. So again, that's why I think this is a good one too. Because you start off with the flight and you start off with all of these incidents. And besides having, I think, Kimberly and Thomas, who don't die until, hypothetically, if you consider the third one, or maybe not at all, but I don't think immortality exists, so they probably died eventually. I don't know. I don't remember if he said specifically that Bloodworth and Bloodline said that they survived. I don't know. Anyway, you sort of have that first group gone, and this next group are trying to fix the solutions to the original thing, trying to make sure that every last person who sort of had a ricochet effect from the first movie is no longer a problem. And that's why I think this is one, my favourite movie, going back to it, that came out in sort of like 2003, and two, with Final Destination 1, a good 1-2 combo. I also still do like Scream. He said, Straw Hat said Scream 3 and 5, which, yeah, I like Scream. I think it's a really good movie. So yeah. Also, just a reference, if you don't know why I'm like, oh, I like Scream, why is it not? The first Scream, and the other one, I think there are other better films, the first Scream came out before I was born, I think in 1996. So, based on the rules where it's like from when you're born to now, doesn't really fit that. So, I'm doing two things. Sorry about that for the confusion. But yeah, I hope you enjoy, and good night.